4 Stifle, 3 days, and he's got some Spell Pierces, and then all the requisite creatures.
So for a while, the Rug Delver was pretty interesting in that some people were playing the Stifle version, and some people were not playing a Stifle version. I would say in like the last 3 months or so, it's pretty much, there's been a consensus in the community at least formed around, yes, you should be playing Stifle again. It's been kind of rare to see the Stifle-less versions.
Yeah. But you know, this is the sort of thing that
I
will probably change again in 2 months.
I mean, it's completely conceivable that maybe in the last 6 months someone has decided that we should all play Stifle, and some guy hasn't played Legacy for the last 6 months and still has Stifle-less.
Yeah.
All right. So Psychook starts out on Mox Diamond, fetch land, so discarding a Maze of Ith that's in the main deck.
Yeah, and he's got quite a few different specialty lands in his deck. One of the nice additions to this sort of deck that is new is the Cavern of Souls.
He has 2 caverns. He's playing, he has a couple cycle lands, so Barrenmore. He also has a Volrath Stronghold in the deck.
Volrath Stronghold is a very special card that's near and dear to my heart. It's a legendary land. It taps for colorless, and you can pay 1 colorless and a black, tap it to put a creature from your graveyard on top of your library. I'm assuming that he has a Life from the Loam engine in here too, which he does, which means that each part of his combo is recurable if he has the right cards.
Yeah. The deck is actually somewhat of a faster combo deck. Well, sorry, it's not a fast combo deck, but it's still a combo deck more than like a control deck. It has a lot of different ways to find both pieces of the combo, and it has a certain inevitability, between Life from Loam and Volrath Stronghold. It will eventually make Merit Lages.
Yep. And so we see that Sai plays a turn 1 Chalice of the Void for 1. Which is an incredibly powerful play against the
Rug Delver deck,
which
the whole
has
deck
like
costs 1.
25, 30 different 1-drops in it.
I'm not even positive. I'm trying to think about how the Rug Delver deck wins through this. I'm not entirely sure.
Lots
Very
of Tarmogoyfs, I guess.
Yeah, they're down to 5 creatures now. Yeah. No lightning bolts. This is miserable for the Delver player.
It's pretty rough. So, looking at Psychook's list, this is a new deck, and clearly he's an innovative deck builder. We saw a really awesome deck from him yesterday. But one thing I'm reminded of is Aggro Loam from this deck. So, Aggro Loam was a Jund-colored deck that used
Seismic Assault, Countryside Crusher. That deck was actually became very popular in the Minnesota Legacy community. They worked on developing that one a lot. So that's actually one of the few decks, the Legacy decks, I've actually gotten to play with a fair amount.
So
it's fallen out of favor though, to be sure.
But so that was a Life from the Loam engine deck that used the cycling lands to draw cards and then killed you with the Seismic Assault. And a lot of the support cards in Sai's deck are similar to what you used in Aggro Loam. So you've got the Mox Diamonds, you've got the Chalices, you've got the Wasteland Loam engine.
So we have a Living Wish being cast, getting half his combo, getting a Vampire Hex Mage.
Yeah. And it looks like Sai has the Dark Depths in hand, so he's going to be able to play the Hex Mage, he's going to be able to put the Dark Depths in play, and he's going to make a 2020 Indestructible Merit Lage token.
Yeah, Robb's only answer to this is Stifle. Because of that Chalice of the Void in play, Robb doesn't particularly have an answer to this.
Yeah, and Sai's like, can you deal with this big thing? And he's got the right token too.
Well, I think if you play Thopter Depths, you're required to have. Dark Depths, you're required to play the 2020. You require a 2020 token.
Robb goes ahead and concedes, scoops him up after finding that he's facing down a 2020 on turn 4 without being able to play a good third to half of his deck.
Right. And that game was pretty much just decided by Chalice of the Void. Obviously, it was pretty neat that Sai was able to make a turn 3 2020, but I'm pretty sure that I'm on, I don't know if Robb could have dealt with the Kasali Pride Mage, much almost just by itself.
Yeah, no, like any decent sized threat would have been able to close that game out in all likelihood.
Right.
So Robb, is almost certainly going to be a little bit in the dark when he's sideboarding.
Yeah, that'd be one of those situations where I'd pick up my sideboard and be like, well, okay, what am I playing against? And what am I playing against? Well, I know that they're trying to make a 2020, so then I'd kind of try to guess at what else might be in the deck. I'd assume that there'd be a Life from the Loam in the deck, or something like that.
So he should be able to intuit that there is a tutor package because he saw the Living Wish.
Saw Living Wish too,
you know.
right?
So he saw the Maze of Ith, so he knows that he's going to need to have a variety of threats that his Nimble Mongoose are potentially powerful because they get around Maze of Ith. But he also needs to be very concerned about that turn 1 Chalice of the Void. So, taking a look at Robb's sideboard, he's got 1 Corrosive Grip, 1 Ancient Grudge, 3 Surgical Extraction, 2 Pyroblast, 1 Red Element Blast, 3 Rough Tumble, 2 Submerge, 1 Spell Pierce, 1 Sulfuric Vortex.
Yeah, well, certainly after the Chalice of the Void game, you have to think he's going to bring in at least Corrosive Grip, probably Corrosive Grip and Ancient Grudge, just to make sure that he's able to find some way to deal with Chalice of the Void. Because he saw Mox Diamond, he can be pretty sure that those cards won't be dead no matter how the game plays out.
Yep.
All other cards he might be interested in, I would think, would be Submerge if he's trying to enter the 2020.
Yep.
And also, if he suspects it's a Loam deck going on, Surgical Extraction is a reasonable sideboard.
Yep, those are exactly the cards that I want to bring in. Having seen what we've seen from Psychic, right. Submerge in particular is going to be a really essential answer. Psy clearly is doing something with his lands, so he's going to have fetch lands. You're going to have an opportunity to shuffle away a real threat if necessary with Submerge, and that's your only card that answers the Merit Lage token.
Yeah.
It looks like Robb, is probably going to be able to take out some of his weaker removal. I'd imagine that Fork Bolt is right away coming out, and Spell Pierce may be a card that he wants to take out too. Maybe
if he's
Stifle.
worried about the turn 1 Chalice of the Voids happening, or the really early Chalice of the Voids, he may still keep Spell Pierces just to make sure that what happened that game doesn't happen again. Yeah. That said, it is, it's not a particularly strong card in the matchup.
I think Spell Snare is actually a much better answer for him to be keeping in.
It definitely is. He may want. I don't think he touches the Spell Snare.
Yeah. But so, we've got some options on things that we can take out here. And we definitely have, a good 7 cards that we want to bring in. Let's take a look at Cy Cook's sideboard here. So, because Cy is running 4 Living Wishes, there's a lot of his deck, of his sideboard space that is dedicated to that wish board. So we've got a bunch of singletons for that. We've got Dark Depths, a Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale, a Karakas, a Bajuka Bog, a Wasteland, a Vampire Hexmage, an Aethersworn Cast, a Gaddock Teague, a Harmonic Sliver.
Right, so then the cards which he actually has, which are, he only has 6 cards that are not part of the wish board. Those would be Mindbreak. First ones are Mindbreak, Trap, and Engineered Plague. Clearly neither of those comes in. This is not, those aren't those matchups. He has 2 Hymn to Turox. It's not for that matchup. And the last card is Chains of Mephistopheles in the sideboard. So at first I'd be like, well, for those of you unfamiliar, let me just tell you what that card does. That's, not exactly the... I know if I try to explain how it works, I'm going to say it wrong.
Yeah.
Chain.
So, you joked before about Humility being the judge card, but Chains of Mephistopheles is actually the card that judges hate to be called upon because 1, the Oracle wording is completely different from what it says on the card, and 2, even if you have the Oracle wording, it's extremely hard to explain.
All right, so maybe without explaining all the details of it, can you say basically what Chains of Mephistopheles does, or the idea of what it was trying to do?
So the idea behind Chains of Mephistopheles is that you want to hose card draw decks, and the way it does that is it replaces your draws beyond the first in a turn with something else. Now,
so instead of drawing extra cards, so let's say I wanted to draw more than 1 card in a turn. Instead of drawing extra cards, I would...
So instead of drawing extra cards, Chains of Mephistopheles wants to mill you, but the way it does that is really complicated. And so what it does...
and so instead of drawing a card, I essentially... I have to loot mill, is that correct?
Yeah, so you discard a card first, and then you draw a card.
So like the red looters.
Yeah,
red,
so you're rummaging with Goblin Rummage.
So basically, instead of my next draws all become rummages instead of draws.
Yeah.
Would that be a short way to say what it does?
That would be a short way to say what it does, except it also has a clause for what if you don't have any cards in your hand, because we can't let you draw cards if you have no cards in hand.
Right.
In which case, it just mills you from the top of your deck. So it's a goofy enchantment. It's not. I don't think it's going to be coming in here. It's designed, it's for brainstorm decks, but I think that Sai's deck is already really strong against Rug Delver specifically because he has, some good removal, and he's got the 4 Chalice of the Voids, which are backbreaking in this match. And there really isn't very much in his deck that he would want to take out.
All right, so we have Robb Couey starts out just on a Misty Rainforest, no fetch, so he doesn't have a turn 1 play outside of a possible Daze or Spell Pierce or Spell Snare.
So we see a Submerge in his hand, and it looked like there is a Spell Snare or another land. Sai is casting a Mox Diamond, and it looks like we have a response to that.
Right, so yeah, he's possibly Spell Piercing the Mox Diamond.
That's the thing that makes most sense here. One nice thing about Mox Diamond is the discard that you have to do to put in play to discard a land.
Doesn't happen until it resolves.
Yeah.
Right, so it's not a 2-for-1 here. And that's a pretty strong Spell Pierce, I would say, because Mox Diamond taps for any color, so it's not necessarily he's not sure that Psycook actually has both colors of mana in play.
Yep. So he prevents the fixing. Sai at the end of turn cycles a Baron Boar, indicating that he has lands in hand, but maybe doesn't have the right colors.
Lands, actually. I don't know if he has any non-wasteland lands in play.
So Sai plays the Wasteland. He's got a Chalice, he's got 2 Living Wishes, he's got a Wasteland, a Knight of the Reliquary, and a Green Sun Zenith.
So he has to decide whether or not he wants to Wasteland Robb Couey or whether he would prefer to try to Chalice on 1. The advantage to trying to Wasteland is that he has a second Wasteland, and might have been able to get all of Robb's lands. He tried for the Chalice, though, and it was hit by a Spell Snare.
Yeah. I think
it's unlikely that would have worked.
Yeah.
Double Wasteland attempt.
In Sai's spot there, you might consider also waiting a turn to play the Chalice for 1. You know that Robb doesn't have an aggressive 1-drop that you need to prevent him from playing, and doing that allows him to play around Daze.
Okay, so Sai tries to waste Robb's land.
Yeah.
Robb in response bolts Sai, then uses Daze to bounce the land that he attempted to waste.
Yep, floating a mana first so that he's able to pay for the Daze and the bolt actually goes through. Looks like maybe we're replaying some of this. I don't know exactly. All right.
Right.
Lands are bouncing back and forth between play and hand. We're figuring.
But the net result is correct.
Yeah.
And I think they're just confirming that they both had the same board state. Robb does not look like he actually has a threat. It seems like he has Fire, Ice, and Submerge left in his hand. Maybe not Fire. He doesn't have Fire, Ice in his...
Maybe it's the Forked Bolt?
I thought it was... Okay, something. We'll figure out what that last card is.
So he plays the land, and he brainstorms...
it looks like it's Rough Tumble. Because, that Rough Tumble bounces a Merit Lage token.
That's right? Dead Gone.
Sorry, that's Dead Gone. Wait. You're right. That's the other split card. He does have Rough Tumble in, though.
Yeah, Rough Tumble is
and I think that's the last card in his hand.
Yep. So Sai is being constrained on his mana right now. He really needed that Mox Diamond and has passed the turn a couple of times now with just a Swamp in play.
So Rough Tumble as a Pyroclasm is kind of an interesting sideboard here. I would say it's an unexpected sideboard card, and that's kind of what happens when you're playing a unknown deck. Sometimes people will make sideboarding decisions against you which are less informed. Robb might be thinking that Sai plays a lot of creatures. It turns out that all of Sai's creatures, which will die to a Pyroclasm, would be a Gaddock Teeg, a Kasali Pride Mage, 3 Hex Mages, 4 Dark Confidants, and that's it.
Yeah. So, it kills a lot of the creatures in Psycook's deck. It kills basically everything but Knight of the Reliquary, but those creatures don't really matter.
And Vampire Hexmage is rarely actually played as a creature.
Yeah.
It's oftentimes it's just a spell in conjunction with Dark Depths. The only really thing you'd be happy to hit would be a Dark Confidant.
Yeah. So
in some bizarro world, you could hit a Knight of the Reliquary, but that's probably not a real thing.
Not with the number of wastelands on both sides of this game. So Robb continues to beat down with his thresholded Nimble Mongoose, dropping Sai to 11, and then passing the turn. And Sai continues to have slight mana problems. He's drawn a Cavern of Souls for the turn, but he doesn't have a creature in his hand that he can cast off that.
He does have a Dark Depth, so I'm going to assume he's set that to Vampire. We'll confirm that.
Yeah, that seems like the...
Then he draws Dark Confidant.
Well, he can cast that off the Swamp.
Right, it's still counterable, though.
Yep.
It was set to human, so it wasn't uncounterable Dark Confidant. And it gets out the dice. He has the 10 ice counters on Dark Depth.
So the reason for setting it to human is he does have a Knight of the Reliquary in his hand.
Oh, okay. So he's actually supposed to color fix there.
Yeah, color fix and make it uncounterable, and that would sufficiently lock up the ground, assuming that Robb doesn't have a way to answer it, to give Sai time to draw out of it.
Sai now down to ace. Continue to take hits from that nimble mongoose. Robb's going to bolt the Dark Confidant.
Sai draws for the turn. Does he get his land? He hits another Cavern of Souls, so he's going to be able to put it on human, cast the Knight of the Reliquary, and that's a big roadblock for Robb.
Yeah.
Additionally, because Sai doesn't have a forest yet, the Submerge in Robb's hand is actually dead. Hopefully, he won't try to play it here because he'll recognize it. No, Submerge doesn't work here, sir.
Yep.
And back to the hand.
I like how Sai doesn't pause. He just continues to shuffle his cards. Sai's just like, nope.
I would like to show you a card, sir. Sai says, yep, thanks.
Okay. That said, Robb finding, he can still burn Sai out. He only has 2 Lightning Bolts left in his deck and 1 Snapcaster Mage, so that may be a little difficult of a task.
It's possible that he did leave the Fork Bolt in. If he brought in the Rough Tumble, I'd imagine they left the Fork Bolt in. So he's drawing to 3 burn spells.
If he likes Pyroclasm in the matchup, Forked Bolt is probably just better than Pyroclasm, considering all of Sai's creatures are 2/1s.
Yep. So looks like that Robb has drawn a Tarmogoyf and a fetch land off of that Brainstorm, which is going to give him another attacker, which means that if he draws a burn spell, he'll be able to get through enough damage that 1 burn spell will be enough.
Well, Robb only needs to have about 1 more attacker than Sai has blockers. The Knight of the Reliquary currently is a 5/5, so it will, every time Robb attacks, he will be losing a creature. But that said, he even if his Tarmogoyf is big enough can, or right now he even has an option of, attacking, and if a block happens, he could Rough Tumble to kill the Knight of the Reliquary.
He has not played a land yet this turn.
Yeah.
He started this turn with 3 Volcanics in play, which was a question on the table, but I guess they...
Actually, the Knight's a 6/6, so that play doesn't work. I was missing 1 of the lands there, so that's... Apologies there. We had the count on that one wrong.
Yeah.
So he doesn't seem like Robb has until a forest hits play. Robb doesn't really have a way to remove the Knight of the Reliquary.
Yeah. But so right now he's drawing to any other creature, any burn spell, Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, actually the Tarmogoyf may be able to win the fight because the Knight of the Reliquary can't pump itself right now because there's no forest or plains for it to sacrifice.
Yeah. So we've got 4, so it's a 6/6. We've got creature, instant, land, artifact. Do we have sorcery in the graveyard?
I don't believe so. No, they don't think so. It's a 4/5, so he's going to need to get 2 more creature types in the graveyard. If that does happen, however, then he'll have the largest creature on the table.
Yeah, maybe not with this Bajuka Bog.
Well, he still has the option of swinging into the Knight of the Reliquary and then Pyroclasming.
Yeah.
2 Knight of the Reliquaries, however, is a much taller order.
Yeah. So Sai is going to get rid of Robb's graveyard. That shuts off Snapcaster Mage as an out. And it slightly reduces the size of the Tarmogoyf. We now have land, artifact, and creature in graveyards.
So Sai winning just with uncounterable 6/6s for 3 right now.
6/6 for 3. I would play that
fine
in
creature.
a lot of formats.
Sai thought about swinging there. That may still be a little aggressive, but he's going to go ahead and go for it.
Yeah. Sai realizes that there are only 2 Lightning Bolts left in Robb's deck. He probably doesn't have a whole lot of burn, and you need to do this before other creatures show up.
So here, the one reason I'm not a huge fan of that is he knows that there's a Submerge in Robb's hand, and Submerge actually has a mana cost in its upper right-hand corner as well.
What?
I know.
Crazy.
So had Robb drawn a 5th land, he could have just submerged the other Knight and lethaled him. Sometimes it's like you forget about that clause. Like, oh no, I can't get submerged. I didn't play a forest.
Yeah.
Like, no, he can cast it.
So it looks like last turn Robb chump blocked with the Nimble Mongoose, and now Sai has decided that he's going to get aggressive with his Knights of the Reliquary.
He's drawing 3rd Knight of the Reliquary.
Wow. So Robb on a pretty quick clock from the 6/6s for 3.
Yeah, more Force of Will. He drew a Force of Will that turn. Certainly
Not very
any
good
help.
against these caverns.
And extends the hand. So Psycook, 2-0 defeats Robb Couey. Stays in contention for top 8. I believe both players here at X and 1. So Robb Couey no longer. Now, Robb Couey eliminated from top 8 contention. Sai, probably 2 more wins, and we'll see his deck in the top 8.
Yeah, and that is a very sweet deck. I like the variety of things that you can do with it. One thing that's kind of interesting about being, even though it is a Vampire Hexmage Dark Depths deck, it's only running 1 Dark Depths in the main and 1 that you can search for with the